You are now tuned in to the On Track with All My People podcast with your hosts, Amber Peters, A.K.A. Ms. P.
And Daitwan David, A.K.A. Dr. Change, ain't nothing strange about it, A.K.A. Mr. David, A.K.A. Ayo Miss.
Oh my God, Daitwan, can we just start the show already? Hey, and welcome back to On Track with All My People. It's your girl,
Yes.
Ms. P here. And I'm here with...
I'm going straight with Dr. Change, right? There's a time that you didn't accept it, so I was spelling my regular name first. So it's Dr. Change, A.K.A. Daitwan David. And today, I'm feeling myself.
This with your chest today.
With my chest. Yes, with my chest. So today, very excited about this episode. It's been a while since we had a 4-person episode today. We are rounding out Black History Month. This is one of our final episodes for the month. With that being stated, one of the things I'm super interested in is recapping how I've been fronting. I've been fronting for a little while, right? Like,
I'm glad you said something.
I've been pulling up to, certain spaces, with a certain HBCU energy, right? Like, even when I put on my new logo, right, there's an HBCU kind of like influence there or whatever. But let me explain why. There is a joke, and I think I talked about this in one of our previous episodes. There's a joke from Richard Pryor when he talks about going to visit Africa, what I think from his very first time. And he got off a plane. And when he got off the plane and saw the sea of blackness, he realized that he didn't see a certain negative stereotype of Black people. He just saw our brilliance. All right? Take it to my Richard Pryor experience. 2019, I was probably, I want to say 7 or 8 years working with a group of people that were from Spelman and Morehouse. We were trying to get money. I was trying to figure it out. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to pull up to y'all homecoming, my first HBCU homecoming ever. So I got there and I realized that I had a moment. I have a video that I recorded. And it's a video. I don't know what the section is, but our guests today are going to tell us what that section is. It felt like it was a bridge. But within that bridge, right, there was Black people from all ages, from babies all the way to the great grands, right, representing Spelhouse, which was the union of Spelman and Morehouse. And when I got there and I was able to kind of talk to people, meet people or whatever, it was such an amazing feeling that I was like, listen, I'm attending an HBCU. I'm not taking any classes, right, but I'm just going to be attending the event, right, because I can't afford to take any classes right now. Maybe when I decide to do this PhD thing. But with that being stated, though, there was a brilliance, there was an excellence, there was fun that was being shared amongst all of the different generations. The only other time I experienced something like that, which is no longer the same, is when I've been to Eastern Parkway, right? But, that's gotten really violent, so it's not the same, right? But my quick questions for you, have you ever been to HBCU homecoming, or what would you think is like your... Amber, we got to make it happen.
I have not. And like, it's one of the things that I'm the most sad about. Like, I really need to get to somebody's homecoming because I have tons of friends who went to HBCUs and like they look like they have a blast every time, but I have not physically been. So let's say we go do that this year. Let's say we go put that out in the universe somewhere that we gonna be at somebody's homecoming this year.
Let me tell you how bad it got. I was part of like the reunion pages. Like, I'm pulling up. I didn't graduate.
Oh wow!
I'm getting all the information. Some people, they on here called me to confirm when is the date of the reunion. So I'm just saying, like, it was just that real. That's how impacted I was. One other thing I want to say is I surely was out there like a tourist. Like, how we talk about the tourists in Times Square, how they're all around, taking pictures and videos. Let me tell you how I knew I was a tourist. At HBCU homecoming games, the tailgate is the most prominent aspect of the HBCU game, right? I actually went to the stadium to watch the game, and there was a bunch of people that laughed at me like, yo, you're such a tourist. You've never been here. Because nobody really goes to watch the games. They're out in the parking lot doing their parking lot pimping or whatever they're doing. They're chilling. But it was still a dope experience. Shout out to the players that were putting their hearts out to play a game when everybody else was in the lot. But with that stated, we wanted to make sure that we can capture this experience, right? So we have some really dope people here. So let's bring on our guests, esteemed guests that are representing the Spelhouse. What we
Yeah.
got?
So I'm gonna start by introducing Mr. Olu Abney. This is a Morehouse alum. And he is the director of operations for My College Tours. And his program has exposed hundreds of students to HBCUs, and we're so excited to have him here with us. And you're gonna introduce whom?
Shafiqah Faust, right? So she is a pretty much career highlights. Let me backtrack. She's been a part of my life for a lot of years. Let me tell you this. She didn't think I was gonna tell the secret, but I'm here, right? Being a little messy,
Uh oh.
right?
Uh
She didn't
oh.
really want to rock with me at first. She didn't want to rock with me at first, right? Me and one other person that we're really, really close with right now, are part of an organization called PAL, and she was supposed to be part of our team. And then she didn't want to be part of our team because we represent the Bronx, and she's representing. She'll tell you her borough in a second, right? Then eventually she
Oh.
came over to the bright side, not the dark side. She came over to the bright side, and it was the best decision. Second, because her Spelman was the first. It was the second best decision she made in her life, right? So let's look at her catalog, right? She is a networking catalyst for sure. HBCU advocate. We'll learn about the things she's doing there. Philanthropic strategist, event producer. I've helped with that. Educator and DEIB enthusiast. Keep this in mind. I never knew the B existed in the DEIB. I just learned that about 10 seconds ago, right? And recently joined a DEI office within a city agency that hopes to serve as a change agent and shift the needle during her tenure. So shout out to our guests. Let's welcome them.
Yes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh
Hey
yeah, oh
family,
yeah,
hey
oh
family.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Hey,
Here we
I can't wait to
go.
get to
Hello,
the secret.
everybody.
You don't want me to tell that secret?
I mean, we starting off shady. I didn't know we were gonna do that.
I want to do you like that. Listen, it was a part of our foundation, right? Like we've been going on years from that, right? But we're here to tell the truth. You're gonna do a lot of truth telling. But
Yeah.
Amber right here is going to kind of get us connected so that the people get a better chance of understanding y'all. Y'all are the superstars, not me, right? So it's not
Wait,
about
hold,
us. It's not
hold on,
about us.
hold on. It gotta
Yeah.
be said. It gotta be said, right? Thank you, Shafiqah, for noticing what I have been noticing all along, right? We had this poll going on our Instagram, like who was the bad guy, right? So now we know who it is. Thank you, Shafiqah, for confirming that. No further questions
It's,
from you. No more conversation from the peanut gallery, sir. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
so yes, and
Mm-mm.
Amber, you'll look at the chat. You'll look at the Restream Studio chat in a second. But we're getting a chance to get started with our activity. All right, so we're gonna get the energizer. Listen,
Yes,
I'm not the
yes.
one. I'm not the
we
one.
we we go we go
And
we gonna get into it, but we gonna get into it. But I just had to let it be known. Okay, all right. So let's get into this energizer. It's called this or that. It's one of our little things that we do here, where you have to pick one, right? So there's no in between. There's no middleman. There's none of that. We are going to make sure that we pick a struggle. Okay, pick a struggle. All right, social adult life in Atlanta or social adult life in New York? This or
Ooh.
that?
Do you want to go first? Do the honors.
Okay, I can go first. I will go with. So I was a different age as an adult in Atlanta than I am as an adult in New York. So I'm gonna go with both. I know this or that doesn't say go with both. No,
One other child. One another.
I will say social adult life in Atlanta.
Olu, what about you?
I go New York, and I go New York because in Atlanta you will eventually run into the same people as a young black professional, and there are some times where you may want to duck off from that crowd, and you have that ability to do so in New York. You know, if you want to have your own mood, your own vibe, in New York, you can get away with that. In Atlanta, especially if you belong to the HBCU community in Atlanta, you are going to be seeing those friends for a long time.
That's
Got
interesting.
it.
I feel like I run into the same people in New York no matter where I go. And as an adult, I meet new people from the AUC that I didn't know when I'm in Atlanta.
Interesting.
And that's also because you are the daughter of the mayor of Harlem, right? Like
Could be that.
You have a lot of connections.
That could be it. You're right. That definitely could be.
Could be. Okay. Next question: hip hop or R&B?
R&B. 90s R&B to be specific. 90s R&B.
R&B for me too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Wait. If y'all had an artist that y'all would highlight, what would be the artist that y'all would say from the R&B? Oh yeah, I made it tough. I know. I'm sorry. I saw the faces like, dang.
My favorite song right now is "Calling on You" by John B. I think that song is tremendous, and that he produced it, I think is wild. That he produced that song and sang it.
John B.
Right. I'm like, I did not expect that. I did not expect that at all. Okay,
not on the
Shafiqah,
HBCU
you still
episode.
thinking?
We have to give one.
I chose John B.
If we have to give one, then yeah, John B's the one.
Honorary.
I would say New Edition because I'm gearing up for their tour. And because that group has like so many solo projects. So when I say New Edition, I'm covering all the solo projects.
Nice. Okay. All right, the next one: fruits or vegetables?
Fruits.
Oh, at the same time. I love it. The twin energy. Favorite fruit? Go.
Mangoes.
Oh, mangoes for me too. See? Family.
Daitwan, what about you?
Man, it's mangoes and strawberries, but the fact that is this an HBCU thing? Like this was Spelhouse? Like
right? It was
like y'all got them shipped directly from the Caribbean.
We're aligned.
That's alignment. I'm going with mango. Amber, what are you saying?
Pina me, please. I love pineapples.
Oh man,
love them. I'm sorry. I gotta be. I'm an Aquarius. What do you want from me?
Okay.
All right. The next one. Morning person or night owl?
Oh, night owl.
Morning person.
Interesting. Opposites. Next one. Staycation or vacation?
Vacation.
Vacation for sure.
Vacation was like out. Goodbye.
I have a follow-up question. I'm very curious.
Wait, I got one first. I got one first.
I see the floor.
Favorite vacation destination?
Take me anywhere in the Caribbean, and I'm good.
So Caribbean, me please. And what about you?
Especially during the carnival season, I'm really good.
Yes.
Okay.
We're amazing. I would say Dubai, and it's because a lot of people have the name Shafiqah, and they have my middle name, so it was like a lot of respect for my name out there. It was great. I loved it.
Nice. Nice. Did I take your question?
You did. But I'm gonna flip it. All right. We're going back. Y'all were both from New York. One is from Harlem, one is from Brooklyn. Y'all traveled to Atlanta for school and spent X amount of years there. What would have been the best spring break location?
Ooh, good one. I like that.
That I've been to or that I would go to?
If you've been to, then we go to been to. But if you haven't gone, one that you would go to.
I think being in the AUC and going to Miami for spring break as a collective is a real it's a real event that you can't capture again. Being in college at a HBCU, in particular Spelhouse, and then going with a bunch of people from Spelhouse to take over South Beach is it's a lot goes on. I'll leave it there.
Yeah. It sound like it. As soon as you said Miami, I was like,
I would echo that. My senior year, we actually took a cruise first and then ended back in Miami for our spring break. So we took over that cruise ship. I'm pretty sure Carnival never let Spellhouse back on their ships and masters like that. And then we took over South Beach, and it was a great time. It was definitely family fun.
That's great.
And
You had some money in college. I like that.
I
I
don't
needed to
know.
handle
I think we did a lot of fundraisers. I'm trying to think. We did it as a class. So shout out to the class of
Yeah,
2010.
shout out to the
One of
class.
the top presidents. I'm not sure how they had it. One of my best friends was our Spelman class president, and I'm not sure even how they did it. All I know is next thing you know, we were on a cruise ship with a whole bunch of Morehouse and Spelman sisters and brothers.
That's
And we
amazing.
even let Clark come. Yep, we let some people from Clark come. That was cool.
And we
Let
let him
people
come.
from Clark come.
It was called
Wow.
Spellhouse.
There's a
It
little
was
shade in that. There was
no,
some shade.
it was no shade. It was a Spellhouse cruise for our seniors. And then I was like, oh, what school you go to? And when they started, I was like, oh, okay, we're welcoming.
Yeah. No doubt. Y'all heard the energy. I'm proficient in her energy, so y'all heard it and experienced it as well.
She said, "Oh,
I'm
okay."
proficient in my energy. Is that a whole language? My energy?
Yes. I've had to learn it over time. So dope experiences that y'all been able to kind of talk about in the Spellhouse. Behind the scenes, Olu was kind of getting to this particular question, right? Which was kind of talking about being from New York and then traveling to like Atlanta and having that experience. So I'm curious, Shafiqah, we'll start off with you. Young black woman from Harlem going to Atlanta, Georgia, right? Like that is the shift. What is the first thing that you think you experienced that made you happy about choosing Spelman?
Hmm. When I arrived, the first thing that made me happy about choosing Spelman, hmm, the support and family and sisterhood. So I had support on and off the campus. I chose Spelman because I had family in Atlanta. My mother had friends in Atlanta, and they showed up and showed out for me. So I was a honor scholar, and I'll talk to you more about that later on in the episode. But I was a honor scholar, and we had to come to campus. I believe like a week or two before the rest of the freshman class.
Mm-hmm.
And I had about 10 cars with me entering me into this campus. And they my scholar, my like was like, oh, are you from Georgia? I'm like, no. They're like, who are these people? I was like, oh, that's my aunt, that's my uncle, this is my cousin, this is my mother's friend from high school. They're like, oh, okay. And like I think my Warner sister seeing that automatically, they gravitated to me because there's the whole family helping her. We got to roll with Shafiqah. So I think that support was consistent throughout the 4 years, and I can never repay my village in Atlanta for what that meant to me. Anytime I was homesick, people were like sending me money to hop on a flight to go home, surprising family. So that support. And then really the sisterhood. So I'm an only child, and that was my first time sharing a room. And I shared a room with a tourist, and I'm a tourist, and that was a lot. That was a whole lot of energy. It was so crazy. We were two aligned. We had the same initials. That was crazy. Both our fathers are Muslim. That was crazy. We went to Target for one run, came back with the same comforter. I was like, oh no, we're not about to do this. We can't be twins. And through that, even though it was so crazy, we created a sisterhood. And she showed up for me, and so did the rest of my Bonner sisters, but they showed up for me in ways that I can never repay them. So I think at that moment, in certain circumstances, I knew I made the right decision.
So we hear that you traveled down I-95 with a 10-car caravan for a bunch of hours, and the same support that you traveled with, you was able to kind of continue to find those networks, those support systems, that sisterhood while you were there. Olu, same question. When did you realize? Because I guess give us a little bit of background story. You started at one place and eventually got to Morehouse. When did you feel like you actually made the right decision? What was that moment?
That's a great question. So I went to Tuskegee University, and in going to Tuskegee in Alabama, in the middle of nowhere, it was about a 2 week span. So I recognized like I love the institution. I love the people here. Still some of the best people I've ever met in my life. But the surrounding city wasn't for me. And then in coming back home to Brooklyn, going to a community college in Brooklyn, Medgar Evers, I went on a college tour to Morehouse, And I actually knew the school was the place for me when I went. We arrived on a Wednesday and we have an event called Crown Forum. And so it's an event where all of the freshmen come and they sit and they listen to older brothers or different people in different industries give feedback and advice about how to mature as a young man right now in this country, in this world, in this space. And so seeing hundreds of young black men in suits, because you have to wear suits for Crown Forum, let me know immediately like this was a place unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. And it was from that moment that I was drawn to Morehouse College. The fact that there were 17, 18, 19-year-old young men, hundreds of them dressed in suits, being from Brooklyn, New York, being from Crown Heights, I had never experienced that in my life. And it was that moment, even before I, started student orientation, where I knew like this is my spot.
That's amazing. I think with that, both of you really kind of talked about, just being able to find what was also a best fit, right? Like just understanding that this was a fit, and then also the connection that you had when you met actual people there. Some that were there previously, but others that were going to go through that same experience. Shafiqah, I have a direct question because both Amber and I, do this work in supporting young people try to figure out their pathway. Of course, that would include many students trying to think and consider college. There has oftentimes been a negative stereotype associated with, financial aid packages or HBCUs, which is why some people choose not to even apply to HBCUs at all, just based on their stereotypes. And you will have some counselors that will discourage students because they don't want students to fall into debt, right? So you received your financial aid package, and there was a gap, right? And I know my auntie Sharon, was just like, listen, we're gonna figure this out, and you have embodied that same kind of mentality. We understand that you were a scholar, but you also hustle, and hustle in Harlem. Sometimes it can have a negative connotation, but there are a lot of positive connotations with that as well. What did you do to kind of close that financial gap to make sure that Spelman was affordable and that you were able to attend?
I used my network to secure the bag. So long before we even knew there was a gap, we knew there was going to be a gap in that financial aid package. So my mother and I had active conversations around being a well-rounded student and what that looked like. And I knew that I wanted to go to HBCU. I don't think it was until junior year that I definitely said Spelman is the HBCU, but she said Spelman was the HBCU since I probably was in her womb. And that yeah, so I kind of knew I had to go there, but I was just like, oh, I'm gonna make my decision. And like you said, Daitwan, I hustled. So in hustling, I knew that I had to get my portfolio together. And what that looked like sophomore year being involved in a couple of different extracurricular activities, not only things that will help my grades to maintain high, but also things that would show that I'm involved in my community. So I did community service with my grandmother on Saturdays and Sundays. I volunteered at my church. I started it was like an after school program. It was a new elementary school coming to Harlem, the same school that some of my uncles and aunts went to. And I decided to start it was it was the same school building that they went to, but a new school that was coming there. And there were a lot of young parents who were entering their students. And I was like, you know what? Y'all need to be more involved in school. Let's start an after school program where we could bring these parents into the school building. And that in and of itself, I think set me apart from other women, young women who were applying to Spelman at the time. The fact that I could tell the admissions counselors, this is what I did when I was a sophomore, continued to junior year and senior year. Well, thought of it sophomore year, got people to get behind me junior year, senior year executed it, and it continued while I went down to Spelman. I think that was part of it. And networking. I mean, honestly, we let any and everybody know that I was going to Spelman. If you saw me in 2004 to 2006, you knew that I was going to Spelman and you knew that I needed money. That means when we went to eat at Sylvia's restaurant, we was talking to them about, should people going to Spelman in a couple of years? Y'all got a scholarship. And I got a scholarship from Sylvia's restaurant. That means when I went to volunteer with my grandmother with the NAACP. We were talking about that. I got an NAACP scholarship. The New York Urban League was doing a lot of political events that my mother and grandmother were both involved in. Every time I went to one of those events, I was telling every politician in the world that I was going to Spelman and that I needed to get to Atlanta. And people came out of their pockets to give me money because they knew how excited I was. I don't even think I was admitted before I had most of my scholarships. So it's really about making your network work for you and hustling, being consistent, and also doing your research and making sure that you have a foundation to really show that you're already grounded. So that when people think like, why am I investing in you? You can say, well, I did this, this, and this already. So if I go down there, I'm gonna just like go off. Like, you don't understand what, like, all I need is that leverage. And that's it. So that's what I did. And I used to be proud to say this number, and then somebody told me it was actually more than I was giving myself credit for. So now I'm gonna just go with, I got over like 10 scholarships before as I was entering Spelman, and that actually gave me enough money to have a lot of leftover money in scholarships, where a lot of students get leftover money in loans, but I had leftover money in scholarships. And they were like,
Mhm.
"Oh, that's a refund check," and I was like, "No, no, no, that's for next year. That's what I do know. Don't give it back to me. I know I'm gonna be here next year." So yeah, I paid myself forward. And the one, I think, token of advice that I would give any high school student is to start now. Wherever you are, start now. If you're a freshman, you know you're gonna need money for college. Unless all colleges become free tomorrow, which I doubt. Start now. You're a sophomore, start now. Think about what you did freshman year that you can put on your resume, that you can add to a portfolio, that show who you really are as a student and as a person, and document those times. Even if it's one time. If you help a politician hand out flyers, document that. If you hand out food to homeless people, document that. If you, I mean, and it's not only community service. I would say also, if you are in dancing school and you've been in dancing school for 15 years, that shows consistency. That shows dedication. That shows a determination. And that shows that you can get through something. And that's what they want to invest in, someone who can get through it. So you can do it. Just start now.
I love
That
it.
that
Can
last
I
line
just
was a
say,
bar.
wait, Daitwan, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Can I just stop right there? Because this is what I preach, right? I preach this to students. So to have somebody who embodies everything that I talk about, I cannot wait to share this back because I think sometimes people think it's just lip service, right? Like people are like, well, I'm not finding the money that you're talking about. And it's like, are you
Mm.
actually doing the work? Like people ask you to do the work. Are you actually doing the work, or are you putting one out there and getting mad that they didn't call you back, and then now it's like I'm done with the whole
Mhm.
process, right? Like to be able to see somebody who actually embodies like doing the work and like you getting paid handsomely for that shows that it works, right? It's just about showing up and doing the work. Go ahead, Daitwan. I'm sorry.
And let me say this
I had to
before
say
you
that.
go. Let me just say this, that you will hear no's and just know that a yes is coming.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So I knew that I was going to get Amber going. It is a conversation that we have with students consistently, and we would like to figure out the ways in which young people understand that it's not just going to be what you receive in that award package. Like if you get that, great, but that the
Great.
work is important.
Mm-hmm.
With that stated, something that you mentioned, because Shafiqah talked about it, and she already knew, right? It took you a while to kind of figure out that Morehouse was your landing spot for where you needed to be. You mentioned earlier that you did a college tour, which is interesting because it's going to be connected to later on. We talk about what you actually do now. You mentioned being able to get connected with students on campus or elders on campus, those that were part of a specific program to kind of invite you into understanding that Morehouse is a good fit for you. What were the other things that tour provided you insight into how you figured out that Morehouse was your place?
That's a great question. And mentality is how I would answer that. Morehouse, even seeing the students in suits, like I said, and walking around the campus, I think a college tour is one of the best decisions I made in my life because it gave me the opportunity to really rub shoulders with the people who I would eventually be in school with. And we saw colleges all up and down the East Coast. And when I got to Morehouse, there was a certain mentality when it came to the students. to stand in the cafeteria and seriously hear young men argue about philosophy in the same way they argued about sports, it was like, whoa, damn, this is a different space. And so that is what attracted me. Also, I was on that college tour. I had people who from my high school and from my area who really gave me just I mean, we say it's real insight. They told me the real about the school in regards to what to expect. And at a certain point, they were just like, "Oh, this is a place for you. Like this is where you would fit in."
Nice, nice. So I want to come back to something you said, because you said that you went to Medgar Evers for a stint, right? You did a
Yes.
stint in Medgar Evers, right? And so, like, a lot of people will argue that Medgar Evers is the HBCU of all the cuties, right?
Yes.
Because it's like it's real black, right? Like, I remember I had did an event there. Shout out to Regine Roy of Queen Geniuses. She did an event there one time. That was my first time ever being at Medgar Evers, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is where it is. Cool. Let's see what it's giving." Right? Walked into the main lobby, and it was like African prints being sold
Yes.
there and all kinds of stuff, and I was like, "Yo, wait a minute, nothing but black people." I said, that might, maybe that is true. This could be our own little HBCU. But the question we have for you guys is, right? If New York City had an HBCU, like, where would it be located? Or would it be in New York City at all? Would it be
Oh, it'd
upstate New
definitely
York?
be in Brooklyn. I know. We would want it in Harlem. I know my Harlem folks would want it up there, but it would definitely be in Brooklyn. And I think
You couldn't be in the Bronx. It's not possible.
it. I don't think
Watch what y'all
anybody.
say.
I
Look
don't.
at his face. He like,
I don't think a number of black people would travel to the Bronx to go to class. I think more people would go to Brooklyn, to be honest.
Daitwan.
This
Daitwan
episode is
told
not
me.
about me, because we would have gotten a shot from Harlem, and he went ahead and shot from Brooklyn. Harlem shoots this shot. People talk to us.
I think if you had a morning class in the Bronx and an evening class in the Bronx, I don't think you're going to school. I don't think you're just
I
going to
did
hang out.
both. Thank you very much, and I'm black, and I'm still alive. Damn it!
Did you,
Don't
did you travel
do
from
that.
Brooklyn to go there? You didn't travel all the way from Brooklyn to
No,
do that.
you're right.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah. No.
Okay.
No.
Shafiqah, same question.
I would say Brooklyn and the Bronx both have the space for a college. Harlem is not as large as those boroughs. It's actually it's part of one of the smallest boroughs.
I was about to say, I like how you made Harlem a borough.
No, I was going to say, I said it's part of one of the smallest boroughs. So space wise, I would say the HBCU has, it needs some space. And since it needs space and it can't be in Harlem, I'll say it can't be in New York.
Oh man, that's hate.
Okay.
New York doesn't. New York isn't the space.
Cancel the
That is a
whole city.
safe
No,
answer.
thank you.
Safe answer. Now, I want to follow up with that, because I'm very intrigued. Is there something that New York doesn't provide that would not allow it to be a full HBCU experience? Like, we know that there are some HBCUs that are in major metropolitan cities, but they tend to be different from New York. Like, why would an HBCU not be successful in New York, in your opinion?
May I jump in? I think Southern culture plays a large role in the HBCU experience. I think we do have schools like Lincoln University. People would claim that Baltimore is a more northern city, but there's a lot of southern aspects to Baltimore. I think the southern culture plays such an important role in regards to the experience that students have, especially New York City students when they go to HBCUs. I mean, from the day you hit campus or even hit the Atlanta airport and somebody says, "How you doing?" and you start hearing "Yes, sir" and "Yes, ma'am." I think that cultural context, even in the food, I think all of that plays a large role in your HBCU experience.
Shafiqah, would you say the same thing?
I definitely would. 100%. I think, and Olu, since you went to two HBCUs, you can definitely agree that the South is where they should stay, and I echo that.
Okay, so like what would define Southern culture? Like what is the Southern culture in which you speak of? What's different?
The respect for
Mm.
elders and for each other, the gratitude and appreciation that comes along with that respect, the feeling that everyone is family. I just like I'm trying to think of another HBCU besides Spelman and Morehouse and Clark. So for example, I went to North Carolina A&T for a homecoming before. And as soon as I stepped on the campus, people were asking me, who you here to see? Like they were greeting me at the door, because they wanted me to feel welcome in their home. And I don't know that New York is a space to do that when people push me down the train station. Like I just don't,
Mm.
like they don't even
Mm.
notice that I have on heels. So I,
Yeah.
I don't think they have the grace and the space.
And I oh, go ahead. Excuse
No,
me.
no, the grace and the space. New York just doesn't have it.
And I think the ties that these institutions have in the areas that they serve, there's a large history that comes from slavery and the
Mm-hmm.
re-education and education of, as they deem, Negro people in these communities, Black people in these communities. And so the history of that is still very much present when you hit these campuses, right? And so when you go to a school like Atlanta and everybody's Black, not only in the people that you're seeing and engaging with on a daily basis, but also when it comes to the mayor, also when it comes to the police chief or the fire chief, when people in power are also Black, I think it just lends itself to a different feel as a student in that respective city. And so when you
Mm.
go to, even when you attend a school in Baltimore, where there are many people in political positions in Baltimore who are alum of Morgan State University that are Black, I think it also has a different feel for you as a student going to that institution. And I think those places are unique in that way, especially because a lot of HBCUs are in smaller cities and smaller towns. I think they have very unique experiences because as a student, you're going to see people in power that have gone to your particular institution. So there's that cultural Southern part of it as well that is unique.
Representation matters. And I thank you
Very much
for
so.
sharing that, right? Like, because it is not about seeing someone that's trying to get there. You're seeing examples of people that have gone, they have been there, and have already arrived, right? And just being able to kind of pass that forward. So I really do love that. One interesting thing about what we have been able to do this month, we focus on using our platform to celebrate HBCUs. We had a friend of the show, we'll call her that, who's definitely supported us in trying to figure out various things. But she's from Clark, Atlanta, and Shafiqah, she wouldn't have wanted to go on your trip. She would have done her own trip, by the way, just for senior year, just to let you know. But one thing that I was able to get experience and learn about was when I actually went to the Spellhouse homecoming, I really didn't understand how close the campuses were.
Yeah.
Like it was foolish. Like they were literally right there, right? Like they were like if you lived in building 2121, it was building 2123, and the other one's 2125. Like it was just that close, right? So y'all have something that's very interesting. The Atlantic University Center. Like I want you to
Yes.
describe that experience, right? There were two things that I noticed, right? There was, yes, y'all have your pride in your own institutions, but you also have a pride for each other. Like y'all love like family, like cousins, play cousins or whatever. So like when I experienced being there and understanding like how it actually works. The Kwanzaa principles of, Umoja, unity, Jama, cooperative economics, being able to utilize each other's resources. How has that shaped your experience? Being able to have a unique experience at your institution, but being able to share the resources from the surrounding institutions as well.
Olu, you want to take this first?
Yes. So going to the Atlanta, so I didn't just go to Morehouse. I went to the AUC for real. And then I also went to the School of Atlanta because Atlanta is a whole different educational aspect just as a city itself. Once again, talking about it being a very Black run city. But going back to the AUC aspect, I took classes at Spelman College, and I also took classes at Clark Atlanta University, which gave me the opportunity to really sit and engage with students who were on a different track, had a little bit of a different mindset based on what they were experiencing as freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and also to really build genuine relationships with people who are not on my campus. And I think that is very unique to go to a school where, we have 2 to 3,000 young men at my particular institution, but then to be able to take classes at another school with all women, that's right there as well. And then to be able to go to another school that has both genders, right? And to sit in those classrooms and soak up game from those environments. And not only the in-class experience at any college is a minute part of the overall college experience, right? So to be able to go to events at Clark Atlanta University, to go to a play at Spelman College, to really hear what women have to say when they're in front of themselves, when there's not a large male audience presence, to really like listen and learn from that, I think is unlike any other place in the world. And then I'll speak about just the Atlanta experience later, but there is nothing on earth like the AUC, and we are very competitive in a way with each other. But fundamentally, especially when it comes to the alumni experience, right? I have some of the best memories now as an alum of Morehouse College than I had as a student because of the people tend to have less ego when they graduate. Some people tend to have less ego when they graduate. So the opportunity for collaboration between CAU and Spelman has been even more prevalent in my life now as a graduate.
Shafiqah, same question.
I would say it definitely is all about unity. And I just want to echo what Olo said, really, when it comes to there's no other place like this, because I don't think I would be an HBCU enthusiast without being able to experience multiple HBCUs, and that's what the AUC gave me. I went to Spelman, but I definitely experienced Morehouse. Just like Olo said, he sat like probably in an audience with like 150 Spelman women. I went to Morehouse classes, and I was the only woman. And it was like, it's something to be said when you are a math major and you go into a class with 15 men and they're not trying to flirt with you. They're trying to learn from you because they're like, girl, you got this. Like, you got this. So we trying to figure this out from you. So like that is a whole different level of like college. Like I don't know if people are experiencing that at any other HBCU because they're not this closely connected educationally, right? Because clearly the institutions respect each other enough to say you can go take a class at Morehouse, you can go take a class at Clark, and I'll put that on your Spelman transcript. And the same with Clark. I took a number of classes over there, and I would say that it was interesting because when people talk about like universities and big universities, Spelman and Morehouse are very small. Clark Atlanta is a university. It's huge. So when I went to those classes, I was a number, and I was like, oh no, I gotta stand out. Spelman, it was 12 of us in some of my classes. It's like not only did I not have to stand out, I was noticed if I wasn't there. Clark, I was not noticed if I wasn't there, which could be good or bad, right? So it was like it gave me, I feel like, a very holistic college experience because I was able to experience the university side and the intimate college setting that I actually went to Spelman for. I will also say, as far as like coming together and building collaborations, and Olu touched on this when he said like and I don't want to misquote you, but you said most of your greatest experiences are as a Morehouse alum, right? I would say that I have seen some of my Spelman sisters, Clark sisters, and Morehouse brothers come together like no other. I've seen them start businesses together, which I think is amazing. Shout out to Brooklyn Tea. It's in Brooklyn and it's in Atlanta. Those are two of my Spelman sisters. I've seen them start families together, which I love. Shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Sampson. I've seen them. They just want to know about them. I see, like I just seen them grow and flourish. And like at the end of the day, yes, I graduated from Spelman. Yes, one of my closest friends graduated from Clark. But when we come together and we're amongst other HBCUs, we definitely say the AUC so that they can understand. Like we have, like this is family right here. Like I love those those other HBCUs, but this is family. And I think that was a special experience that as a high school student, I didn't realize I was getting into. And it wasn't until I went to Spelman on a college tour junior year, and we went to Morehouse probate, and I was like, "Oh, it's women over here," and they were like, "Yeah, women are on Morehouse." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So if I go to Spelman, I come over here, they're like, "Shafiqah, you could just walk," and I was like, "Okay." And then like we went to Clark, and then I was like, "Oh, I still have Spelman." They was like, "She probably goes there," and I was like, "And she's over here now?" And they were like, "Yes." They were like, "They're all over." And which was really cool is that also Morris Brown was thriving when I was a junior in high school. I wouldn't say thriving. It was doing well. So I also got to see that school. And then to know the Morehouse School of Medicine was right there. And then to know people who actually graduated from Morehouse School of Medicine who went to Spelman with me. I was just like, oh, this is dope. Like this is, like this is really dope. And one last plug, the dual degree program connects all of us. And I actually started out as a dual degree major. So we have a lot of engineering classes that we take collectively, well, classes to gear us to transfer to become engineering students at another school. And we take that collectively through Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark. So I took a number of physics classes and other classes at Clark to prepare me for that transition that I did not take.
Nice.
But yes.
Man, listen, first of all, shout out to all three schools. This AUC thing, like I kind of wish that we had that here. Like we had that kind of energy here with the schools that we have. Like, I think it's something that every kid should experience, just from like how you guys seem so excited about the experience that you had. But one question I have about is how they cultivate identity, right? Like thinking about, I know a lot of people say HBCUs are literally like they're centered in Blackness, right? And like teaching you how great you are and what you come from. So like, how did your schools do that for you?
Well, I will say that you can always tell a Spelman woman, but you can't tell her much.
Go ahead.
So I would say that, yeah, like literally talk your talk. So Spelman definitely taught me to talk my talk and walk in my light. And I don't know if I mentioned, I mean, clearly Daitwan talked about Auntie Sharon. So my mother was definitely integral in my upbringing and teaching me to have confidence as a young Black woman. But there's something about being around a whole sea of young Black women. It's just like so elevated, especially a whole sea of young Black women that were all the same in high school. And not the same exact, but it's like, oh, they led their cheerleading team. Someone else did that. They were the president in high school. Someone else did that. It was like, oh, so we were all the cream of the crop. And to have friendly competition as the cream of the crop and to really push each other and strive each other in ways that real sisters would, I think is no comparison in the world. I'm thinking about times where like some of my math major sisters like knew like certain subjects I was just struggling with. They stayed up with me all night and they knew it. And I'm like, oh, but y'all could go to sleep. They're like, no, Shafiqah, you don't know it. And I was like, oh, okay, we're really in this together. Like, y'all got it, but we're in this together, And I really think about freshman orientation where it's just us. So for the first, and it's not as long now, so it's a little different. I'm dating myself. I went to Spelman over 15 years ago. But when I went and we did have freshman orientation, it was about a week long and it was just women. And we couldn't see any males. Only the males that worked at Spelman could we see. We also wore skirts to the sun went down. I think that's when we were allowed to change. And it was something about paying homage to our founders and women who came before us and just respect and understanding that culture that really made me care about how I show up in the world. So like they would say things like, don't wear a scarf to the cafeteria. You never know who you meet. Before that, my Harlem self was wearing a scarf to the corner store. After, I'm telling you, by December, they had that in my head. I was like, can't go outside. Got a scarf on, got to look like this. And I just appreciate that because those things really matter. And presentation is everything. And I think Spelman, and I know that Spelman really drilled that in my head and gave me that confidence and security that I needed. And it also taught me that it was okay to be my authentic self I think in New York, I did a lot of code switching from K through 12th grade. I went to predominantly white schools. And honestly, those people didn't come to Harlem. They stayed on the Upper West Side with me. And that's where we hung out. And then after 96th Street, they got off the train and I stayed on the train. And it wasn't until I went to Spelman. And actually, it's funny because one of my good friends from Spelman, she lived on 96th Street. So she would get up with them too, but she's Black. So we used to joke about that. That's another story. But I remember us coming home and I was like, nah, y'all all got to come uptown. I don't know what was in it, but I was just like, nope. I don't want to go to your house. You got to come to my house. And it was like, not that they never traveled to my house in cabs, their parents picking them up, things like that. But not on the train, not walking through the hood. That was not what they were doing. And when I went to Spelman, I just you could just see that I was like growing into a different woman and being my full self and code switching when necessary, but not being so conditioned to code switch. And just being who I wanted to be and showing up how I really wanted to show up. So I'm forever grateful for Spelman.
Nice. Olu, what about you?
Morehouse is a fraternity. Just to be clear with everybody, going to Morehouse is essentially joining a fraternity. And they are very intentional. We are very intentional at Morehouse about cultivating young men who understand what we deem as a responsibility in regards to going to Morehouse, a responsibility for coming out and serving the community that you derive from, or a community that you don't come directly from, but you are going to come out and be about service. And so we are intentional in building young men who are ready to serve by the time they graduate the college. And a lot of my sister spoke about freshman orientation. Even though I haven't visited many freshman orientations, I would say Morehouse's new student orientation is unlike any other in the world because from the moment you set foot on campus, it's about building young Black men, and they are very strategic about the information that's presented. Like I said at the beginning of the call, the Wednesday Crown Forums, they're very intentional about what students are listening to and who they are listening to on a weekly basis. The fact that many people who teach and work at Morehouse, like Spelman, are alum of the college, right? So you are definitely hearing from people who have gone through the same process and who are passing that knowledge down. For example, I've had professors check me in a way that I am sure had I gone to another institution or had I stayed at Mega Everest College, I would not have been checked because not only did they see me as a student, they saw me as a younger brother. They saw me as uh, someone who they felt responsible for. And that's interesting, especially in HBCUs, period, about staff uh, and other alum feeling responsible for you. As a freshman student, I was able to call alum of Morehouse College and have conversations, and I know they wouldn't have picked up the phone if I hadn't gone to Morehouse. But simply because I went to that college, they felt responsible for me and responsible for me growing and developing as a young man.
I love that. I love that. And that's not something that you hear from a lot of students. And we had a young lady on Abrea who was talking about something similar. She went to FAMU and like she said, the school that she came from, she didn't, had no tie to the community whatsoever. But then, entering FAMU felt like people felt that they had an obligation to the student, which is different than what you hear about anybody else. So that's super dope to hear.
Yeah, and I think the story. So Amber and I have this month have been meeting with a lot of people. We've dedicated our platform to like these HBCU short series. We've been having conversations, showing up to various places, having meetings. And the consistent thing people have talked about is that family, right? Like, and making sure that when you become a part of that institution, you are a part of that legacy. I reiterate a powerful story that I heard about a month ago is a gentleman that transferred from one school to Morehouse. And he said that one of the things he was so grateful of is that once you become a part of Morehouse, you are as much as Morehouse as the red clay that it was built upon. And I was like, man, that was poetry.
That's deep.
I was like, man, he don't have that on the shirt. He don't have that on the shirt. I might figure out a business model, right? But I was like, man, that's crazy. Like a direct play, that's sort of biblical, right? And so there's a lot that kind of happens with the people that are on campus being able to kind of make sure that you are not going to fail. They are a safety net. But prior to that, you had a safety, not a safety net, but you had like a foundation of people that were supporting you. I want to be able to kind of understand the parent side. Both of y'all have parents that have influenced and shaped your mindset, thinking about college, thinking about HBCUs, thinking about yourselves, right? What role did your parental influence have in you kind of shaping your decision? We'll go with Olu first, and then we'll go with Shafiqah. I know Auntie Sharon. I know Auntie Sharon did the most for the greatest reasons.
So it's very interesting because my story probably differs from my sister in the way that my parents were very lax in regards to my choosing of a college in university. It was really about me and where I felt I was going to be most successful, and they gave me a lot of rope and leeway to make those decisions. And so, in it, also going to Morehouse happened at a very interesting time because during that same spring, I went on a college tour to Morehouse. My mom had died from breast cancer, right? So it was such a tough time that I don't even think I conceptualized that it was a tough time for my father and for my brother and for myself. And so I just went about, day by day. Like, this is my next step. This is what I have to do. And I did it. Like, I took a lot of responsibility upon myself. Like you all were speaking about earlier in regards to scholarships. Students at a certain point have to push themselves, right? You have to be self motivated. You can't lean on your parents, especially when it comes to college. You're going to have to step out there and you are going to have to be able to be uncomfortable, right? And be brave and know that things are going to be all right and really trust in yourself. A lot of the college experience is about how much do I trust in myself to be successful. And so my father was extremely supportive in regards to like, hey, whatever you decide to do, Olu, I'm behind you 1,000%. But this is very much your work. This is very much your efforts. You can stay at Mega Evers. You can stay at a CUNY. Uh, you know how that's going to end up in regards to the curriculum and what you will be requested and the financial package. But if you want to take this big step and go to the bottom of the map, it's very much going to be you and you putting in the work. And it was a blessing to have that responsibility because it was having that responsibility then prepared me to be the man that I am today in regards to matriculating through Morehouse.
Wow.
Mhm.
That takes some perseverance, Olu. So I just give you my hats
Thank you.
off. Seriously, like salute. Like I can't imagine losing a parent, especially a mother. Both
Yeah.
are important. But a mother, nurture a mother, and then being able to say, I'm gonna make a decision for myself and do it. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
I would say that, and Daitwan, your question is, how did my safety net support me in going to Spelman or influence me?
Well, let's go with both, rather than the safety net, specifically the parent side,
Okay.
because we want to be able to understand how can we bring parents more into this conversation. Something that you said that was really dope. When that new school was coming into the building, he was like, "Hey, I wanted to figure out how to get more parents involved." This is steadily a thing. Like, how do we get more parents involved and involved in a way that is healthy and safe for the child and the student that's trying to make this big decision. And parenting doesn't have to be one way, right? Like we have Olu's story where his father was like, "Hey, I'm going to support you in the idea that like, hey, this is what you want to do. I'm not giving you any pushback, but understand that this is your work, this is your effort." That's something I know my father would have been embodying that, and I know that Auntie Sharon embodies some of that as well. But she's also Auntie Sharon is different. Like she's in there. Explain that different. Both. How is it different for you in terms of the parental involvement?
So, like you said, she's different. She's in there. She's in everyone's business, not just mine. So she, my best friend, one of my best friends would say she definitely, my mother's the reason that she was at Spelman too and graduated. And I would say from the start, like I said, she wanted me to go to Spelman since the womb, and she put us in different places so that we would be able to navigate being supported. So, like I would give her credit, and then I would also give my church family credit. I would give my grandmother a whole bunch of credit. I would give everyone credit for being supportive of me while I was growing up, especially checking in on me in my education. So like there was not anything happening in school that my mother and my grandmother didn't know about. And that was from K to 12. In 12th grade, my mother was still coming to school, parent teacher conference, she was probably on a PTA all of my life. I definitely remember in high school because I was like, come on, you got to get up for this now. Like, I'm in high school. Like, why are you still involved? She was all the way involved. Like, helicopter mom, she probably invented it. But I love her for that because I see myself in her in so many ways. So I appreciate that. And I would say that she saw the importance of Spelman because she really saw strong Black women coming from there, and she didn't have an opportunity to go away to school. So she was like, no, you got to experience something different so that you could always know New York is always here. You got to leave. And you will always have the opportunity to leave once you experience something different. So she so that was one of her pushes to just get me to Spelman and to get me away. And then I think HBCUs, she was all for HBCU. She just thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. She was like, you're gonna learn all about your African heritage. You're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. She was like, the white man stripped us from a lot of our roots, but you gonna learn that at Spelman. And like, so she was like power to the people, and she was just like, this is what you're gonna get. And I think a part of it is she also wanted to go. So like the closer I got to going to college, she was like, this is where I would have went had I known this existed. Like, and it's no fault to my grandmother or my great grandmother because I give salute to them. They did an excellent job of raising her. They just was like, you should go to Queens College. It's free, Sharon. And she went to Queens College. It was free, but then she recognized, hey, I'm not going to tell Shafiqah anything about money. We're going to figure out the money. That's not a problem. And she also knows that I didn't want to have a lot of debt. So she knows that I'm a little frugal. So she was like, we're going to have to figure out the money because Shafiqah might just make the free decision if it comes down to it. But she wasn't going to let me make that free decision. But I think that her involvement from the start of my education is what really got me to Spelman and kept me in Spelman and made me graduate from Spelman. So it was total. I give her all the praise and the glory because that was all her. And I know that me going, she also went, and so did everybody else. She's the proudest Spelman mom. I think everybody in my family, like, they started creating shirts. My godmother has a Spelman godmother shirt. That was the first one to come out, and I was just like, okay, I'm happy that I can do this for everybody. Like, it was just like it was like that big of a deal for them. So their support and influence was greatly appreciated and shown on a daily basis. And I think it helped that my pastor, rest in peace, Reverend Butts, he went to Morehouse, and he is one of the proudest Morehouse men I know. And once I was in high school, this man was talking about Spelman. He was like, that's where you go go. And I was like, okay. And he was like, no, but I'm saying that's where you will go. And I was like, I hear you. And he was like, all right, did you go on a tour? I'm like, I'm a sophomore. He was like, you gotta go on a tour. And like, then someone in the church found the Delta tour for me. Shout out to my sorors. And then I was on a Delta tour. So it was like, that's why I said it was definitely a safety net. But my mother made sure that they were putting that bug in my ear every day, so that it wasn't just coming from her, so that other people could hear the same thing, so that I can hear the same thing from other people day in and day out. So I had no other choice, which is why I tell Dr. Change's children, they're going to Spelhouse and they're going to hear it every day. Opportunity I get to have one of my Spelhouse friends or family tell them that, they're going to know, and they're not going to know any of the schools, and those are the only 2 schools that exist right now. So they'll know that.
So let me jump in. Let me jump in real quick, and then Amber's going to answer. Amber's going to ask her last question. So I got on a Spelhouse United hat, and I have a sweater on, but it's too hot for the sweater right now because the heat is kicking up right now. But I was pretty convinced. Shafiqah has been talking to my daughter for a very long time about Spelhouse. My daughter's 10 right now. And I went there and I was like, yeah, this is probably where we're going to be going. And I say we, intentionally. Like, I may have to take that move as well. But I'm going to just let you know, through this project that Amber and I did this month, I've done some research. And there's some schools that are starting to creep in. And I was like, man, I wouldn't mind. But, I see what y'all are saying. Amber, before they shut me off.
They shut it
Absolutely.
down. They was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Speaker said, I
Even
am
though
clear. Like, I just want you to know that Daitwan said that almost every other episode that you have told his daughter that she's going to Spelman. So we're clear that that's what she's going. Like,
me
it is what it
too.
is.
It
It
is
is
what it
what it
is.
is.
She actually doesn't have a choice. She can pick wherever she wants to go for grad school, but that's where she's going.
So undergrad, you will be sorry. Final answer.
Right. You can major in whatever you like. You can have whatever you like as a major.
Shout out to your mom and my Kappa brother, Doc Butts. Shout out to
Yes.
them.
Oh, see, more family. I love it. The last question for y'all, okay? Because we want to know, like, as adults now, right? Like, you guys had these incredible experiences. Like, I'm sitting here super jealous because I tell everybody who's everybody. Like, I wish, like, HBCU, like, that was in my mind, but my pockets wasn't straight. My pockets wasn't right. I didn't know all these things that Shafiqah knows, right? Like, I wasn't hustling like that. So I missed my opportunity. But I want to know from you guys, like, how do those experiences shape the work that you're doing now? We want you to plug yourself because we know y'all doing incredible work. Like, we know what y'all do, but we want everybody else to know what you guys do. So, like, how did it
Please.
shape your current experience now as adult? But then also plug all the goodness that y'all got because we know, but we want them to
Go ahead, sister.
Yes. So
All right, sister. I'm gonna start using that.
know.
so like I said, I show up as my authentic self. Currently I'm working at a city agency, doing a lot of work in the DEIB space, and I'm always repping HBCUs. My line sister and I have a project coming down the line where we will really being intentional about how we bring high school students together around HBCUs and to actually understand that experience. Like my passion is telling people so that I don't hear Amber's story of my pockets weren't there. So my passion is to tell high school students about scholarships. Like there are too many for any black or brown student to say they couldn't go to HBCU because they couldn't afford it is a lie, especially if you're in New York. I see so much money on the table. So students can follow me at Scholarship Wiz on Twitter. I tweet about every scholarship I hear about. I stay connected to the streets of the scholarships just for that. So there's a lot of different scholarships for like just for that because I don't ever want anyone to say they couldn't go to HBCU for that. Now, if an HBCU isn't for you, it's not for everybody. I understand. I think it is, but if you don't think it is, I'm not here to convince you. I'm just gonna say sorry when you realize it wasn't. So that's on you. But you can follow me there. And you can follow me professionally on LinkedIn at Shafiqah Faust. And I post a lot of content around the DEIB space, HBCUs, and taking advantage of your network and making your network really a network. So, yes.
I love it. Ohu, what about you? Tell us how has it shaped your experience, like your experience now as an adult, but then also plug all your wonderfulness.
So, in talking about that fraternal aspect of service that Morehouse is so big on, when I came out of Morehouse, I knew that I wanted to teach, and so I taught in Philly for 6 years. And then my father started a college tours organization, and so I partnered with my father to provide opportunities like the one I was presented. When I was in high school, there was a brother by the name of Carlos Walton who did a college tour that took me to a bunch of HBCUs and to Morehouse. And so, in honor to him and in honor to my father, we do college tours all around the country. We go as far as Tulane in New Orleans and as far north as your Ivy Leagues, as Harvard, MIT. And we definitely have a special place in our hearts for exposing students to HBCUs. We are at mycollegetours.org. We would love to support anybody in regards to making sure that they at least see the options. I think a lot of our New Yorkers, especially because it's the biggest city in the world, get trapped in the idea that New York is it, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
even my borough is it. So
Mm-hmm.
at the very least, give yourself an opportunity to be exposed to these campuses so you can make an informed decision.
I love it. Daitwan. Man, I'm just like this. Ah, ah.
We got
We
another
learned
one.
so much from y'all. Like this is, I'm like beyond right now because one, all the information that you guys shared, super spot on. And I think this is what we wanted when we thought about creating this whole series for the month. We wanted people to see the power of HBCUs. We know they're powerful. We know that they produce amazing students and amazing alumni, and we wanted to make sure that everybody was clear. And I think it's crystal clear now. Like if they don't see it, I don't know what else to say.
And you shout out to y'all for dedicating your page all month to
Yes,
HBCUs.
absolutely.
That's seriously kudos to that, because I don't think students in New York see HBCUs enough, which is why the exposure isn't there, which is why they don't have that same connection to them. They see CUNYs, they hear about Harvard, they see this. Let's see some HBCUs.
And
Yes.
thank you for
Yeah.
introducing me to my sister. I think the one of the most important parts of going to HBCU is like now that we've been introduced, we're definitely going to link up. I'm coming
Definitely.
uptown. Like it's going down.
Yeah, that was going to happen regardless.
Yes.
Shafiqah is a natural networker. She probably has found you on LinkedIn already. We're going to get into exactly how y'all going to connect in terms of HBCU stuff or whatever. There's just a natural connection there. The biggest thing that we hear consistently, we've interviewed and started the podcast last year. We've been talking about it for years. But the running thing is leveraging social capital, and that has been
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest things that we've heard. In particular, the commonality amongst HBCUs, right? That the networking and the social capital is extremely important. It's extremely important for life, but we know that it is ingrained and instilled in y'all on almost every aspect of your HBCU experience. So this is the phase right now where we do a recap. So within our podcast, we have three particular pillars or things that we try to really make a part of this experience. Being able to kind of investigate like what's going on an issue, being able to celebrate people that are change agents and those that are affecting the work in a positive manner, and being able to elevate the consciousness of those that are watching. So we believe that we hit it. Amber, we have another one, but let me just recap. Um, so one of the things that was kind of discussed was that there is a role that parents play in helping to shape student decisions, and that y'all were able to benefit from a lot of shared resources from the AUC, right? For Shafiqah, you said that you knew that you arrived on Spelman and that was the right decision because you had support from family and the sisterhood. And from Olu, you said not just the fact that you represent your own Greek organization from the Divine Nine, but the institution itself is a fraternity. If you decide not to pledge to any one of those, right, the institution
Yeah.
itself is a fraternity, right? And there's a lot that goes into understanding that everybody is essentially going to be looking out for each other. That is such a powerful concept. You also mentioned being able to kind of discover your best fit through the college tour that you went on. Amber and I understand within DOE, one of the best practices is being able to understand best fit to be able to kind of find what the college is for you. We also talked about an experience that you had. I love the idea of the Crown Forum and mentorship and being able to kind of get that mentorship out the gate. This is what it looks like. Regardless of if you choose to seek it out or not, it is here and available for you. And there was a lot that I think that it was integrated in your experience from that being a part of like the foundation. So shout out to you for sharing that. Being able to use your network to secure the bag, get ahead of the inevitable. Shafiq, when you mentioned that, right? Like you talked about, listen, you know you're going to need money, right? Like the refrigerator is not going to stay full for long. You know you're going to have to go shopping again, right? So you might as well get ahead of that, start the plan, put it out there, utilize your network, and in a way, um, Shafiq and Auntie Sharon were the first social media. Like they were the first because they were pretty much saying like, "Hey, I'm posting this everywhere, and now it's going to be retweeted and reshared, and everybody's going to start working for Shafiq's benefit." I have seen it in action, right? I've seen it with Shafiq's event planning because she didn't mention the entrepreneurship side, but that's okay. With event planning, there's been times we've been trying to support, and there was nothing readily available, but the network figured out how to make certain things happen, and she really embodies closed mouth, don't get fed. You
Mm.
want to learn how to embody that. She is the person that you go to. You also, of course, mentioned networking. Olu, for you, being able to kind of visit the campus. You mentioned just beyond understanding the Crown Forum, you was able to visit the campus to understand the mentality of the students, right? And we need to figure out a better way of getting students to understand that, right? Like that mentality plays a role. That's a part of the best fit within going to the school. Do you fit here? Does this mentality help to shape the man or woman or whatever that you're trying to become, right? Because you said the young men were arguing about philosophy the way that they argue about sports. That needs to be on a shirt somewhere, right? Like y'all keep giving me these gems and not capitalizing on it. I'm gonna let y'all know. I cut you as part of the profit, but that's such a powerful statement, right? Because we really truly understand barbershop talk and how men can argue about sports or debate about so many different topics. But to be able to debate about philosophical topics is truly inspiring and amazing. And you're not just talking about maybe one or two, you're talking about groups of men probably having a really philosophical debate and also a healthy one, right? Like men being able to debate in a healthy manner is something that needs to be shown and seen in many different neighborhoods. And for your slight from earlier on, I know you needed that because you're from Crown Heights. No shout outs to you. I'm not shouting out. I know how to get down in Crown Heights, so I'm not sure how much education is happening in Crown Heights either. Shout out to you, right? We talked about this. Amber and I really, really had this debate. I've had this debate with other people, but you really kind of honed in on the fact that Southern culture plays a role in the HBCU experience, from the way in which you're the embrace, the grace that people talked about, the space to be able to not be on top of each other and not have the attitudes that New Yorkers have, right? Olu mentioned like the re-education of the quote unquote Negro people. Please do not cancel me, right? That was a thing at one point in time. It was a term that was used, but the re-education at that point in time was a thing. And the connection to the community, being able to see people that are empowered, that have lived an experience that you're about to embark on, plays a role into why it probably should more exist in areas that are not New York. Yeah, I real shout out to that. The AUC, Unity and Cooperative Economics, y'all both were able to really benefit from that institution. You understand that, yes, you were able to still have an identity for which you have, what your alma mater is, right? But you also understand the benefits, collective benefits of being able to kind of get perspectives from other places, other spaces, other people. I do have a follow up question, but that's not part of this episode. I'm very curious. But fundamentally, you mentioned like the alumni experience have been absolutely wonderful to what has extended beyond when you were in school. You also mentioned like the brotherhood and the sisterhood and how that really, really reflected a lot of you. But also, both of y'all are in this work right now paying it forward. Like your HBCU experience was so prominent and so rich that you understand that you just cannot keep it to yourself, right? Because you would do a disservice to the legacies that y'all come from, right? Like the legacies that y'all come from would not allow you to just keep it to yourself. Oftentimes, we've heard this, the critique. I'll be fully transparent. A critique that's on Black people is that sometimes when Black people arise, they're gatekeepers, right? They kind of exploit the information, the power, the resource to themselves. And I found so many examples where that is not true, right? Like it's particularly with people that are part of the HBCU world, where it's like, here's a game plan. Let me help you kind of figure this out. Young man, you are playing yourself right now. And yes, I am your professor, right? But you are playing yourself, and I will not allow you to fail. A young woman, listen, you're doing way too much, right? Like, I don't want to judge how people are walking outside or whatever the case may be, because I know sometimes I walk outside looking crazy, but you cannot be walking outside with the big bonnet on because you don't know who you're going to run into, right? How you show up in the world, your presentation, that's what you can control. You can't control your presentation. You may not be able to kind of control perspectives, but you can't control your presentation. So that was powerful. And the last thing you kind of mentioned and talked about, well, two things. One is students have to be self-motivated in this process. It doesn't matter the level of support. It can be in all over the place, right? Whether you're getting a little bit or a lot, you still have to do the work to make sure that you're being able to kind of live the dream that you're creating for yourself. And lastly, parenting doesn't have to be done in one way. This is for the parents. We don't need all of you to have the information or the knowledge, right? We need y'all to support your child, have conversations with them, figure out what they're trying to do. If you can't support in very specific ways, then do so. If not, try to get the network and get to the people that can. And we want to shout out and celebrate y'all for continuing the work, being able to, with Shafiqah, Harlem hasn't left you, right? Like you definitely, kind of do body some of the Southern Belle thing. I've seen it, right? But Harlem hasn't left you. Let me tell you why. You said you are still on the streets of the scholarship world, right? Like so, you still have figured out a way to show up in your authentic self, right? And I love that. Like you have found yourself. You're leveraging your network. You also have talked about scholarships. You don't want people to have Amber's story, right? So the scholarship rates on Twitter is where they can find you at. And then also, can you just really state once again the IG page?
The IG page is My Black Degree, and that is a project coming soon that all high school students in New York City especially will want to know about.
My Black Degree, perfect.
Nice.
And then for Olu, you have literally utilized your story and created a business with it, right? Like where you're able to help young people, especially in New York City, to go on these tours to be able to find what you found, right? Like regardless of if it's at an HBCU or PWI or wherever, them being able to kind of go and experience your what your organization provides to understand, like, hey, when I arrive, this is the place. I understand the mentality of the students, or to even be able to say, this is not the place for me. I've heard of this place,
Absolutely.
I've thought about it, and this is not the right thing for me. And that's such a powerful thing to say, like, I know what I want and I know what I don't want. And shout outs to both of you. We have officially hoping that through this episode, many other people celebrate you all. So shout outs. Amber, wrap us up.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you guys for being a part of the show. We are so grateful. So grateful. You guys make sure you guys follow them. We're gonna drop all that information in our description below. So make sure you check that out because they're doing powerful work and we want you guys to be able to follow along with their journey. And also make sure you follow us as well. We are OTWAMP on Instagram. So, follow us as well so that you can continue to see our stories and be able to follow the conversation and be a part of the conversation. So thank you guys for being part of this. I'm Ms. P and here with Dr. Who?
Dr. Change. Yes. Shout outs really quick. My college tours for Olu and mycollegetours.org. Shout out to that. And I'm creating a new hashtag. The Bronx goes to school. I don't want them to watch this episode. I don't think the Bronx definitely goes to school. I went to school.
Right.
Shout out to the Bronx. Right, we go to school.
Y'all gonna stop firing shots at us, okay? I'm
I
putting
was
up
just
the
saying where
dummy
the
finger.
school should be.
We appreciate y'all. We have
Thank
another
you for
one.
having us.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.